The giant crystal dome above the Galactic Council meeting hall buzzed with thousands of different voices and sounds. 847 different alien species filled the circular seats that rose up like a stadium around the center stage. Some aliens floated in special gas tanks, others looked like living diamonds that sparkled with their own light, and many were so old their civilizations had existed for millions of years before humans even learned to make fire. Ambassador Kim Hannah stood at the small platform in the center of it all. She wore her best diplomatic uniform, the fancy clothes that showed she spoke for all of humanity. Her hands shook just a little as she looked up at all those alien faces staring down at her. Some had tentacles, some had multiple eyes, some were just balls of energy floating in metal suits. But they were all looking at her now. Important delegates, Hannah said, and her words were instantly translated into hundreds of alien languages by the Council's computer systems. I am here today to give humanity's last speech to this council. The aliens started whispering to each other in their strange languages. The Illuminati, who looked like floating clouds of bright light, seemed to be laughing at her. The tall Vorthak crystals made musical sounds that probably meant they thought she was being silly. Hannah took a deep breath and continued. For 30 years, humans have been part of this galactic cooperation experiment. We have given you our new ideas, our hard work, our resources, and our hope. But we have watched you ignore our suggestions for making things better. You have said no when we asked to be treated equally. You have laughed at our warnings about dangerous threats, calling them the scared thoughts of a young species. Elder Councillor Vexton was one of the oldest and most important aliens in the council. He belonged to the Kethmoran species, which had tentacles like an octopus and had been ruling parts of the galaxy for thousands of years. He leaned forward in his special seat, his tentacles moving in an angry way. Young Ambassador, Vexton said in a voice that sounded like he was talking to a small child, this dramatic show serves no purpose. Your species has gained much from our guidance and protection. Hannah's face became cold and serious. Protection? She asked loudly. When the Helix pirates attacked and destroyed our outer space colonies, where was the Council's protection? When big companies from elder species stole resources from our worlds and paid us almost nothing, where was our equal treatment? When we offered solutions to fix the power problems at Nexus Station, why were our engineers only allowed to give advice while Vorthak contractors got all the real work? The entire chamber became completely quiet. No alien had ever spoken to the council leaders like this before. It was shocking and scary for many of them to hear. Therefore, Hannah said, her voice now strong and clear, humanity officially withdraws from the Galactic Council, starting right now. We reject all treaties, trade agreements, and cooperative projects made under council control. We will find our own way among the stars. Suddenly, laughter filled the chamber. At least, it was the equivalent of laughter for all these different species. Some made musical sounds, others flashed different colors, and some just vibrated in amusing ways. Elder Councillor Zethmira, who looked like a huge singing crystal, made sounds like beautiful wind chimes. A tantrum from children who refused to accept their proper place in the natural order, Zethmira said, her crystal body ringing with each word. Very well, Ambassador. When your species realizes how foolish this is and comes crawling back to us, perhaps we shall be kind enough to forgive you. Hannah collected her papers and electronic devices from the podium. Her face was calm and peaceful, showing no anger or fear. She walked slowly toward the exit door, but stopped just before leaving the chamber. Perhaps we will come back, she said, turning to look back at all the alien delegates one more time. Or perhaps you will discover what you have truly lost. She paused for a moment, letting her words sink in. Good luck with your Nexus Station repairs. I hope your contractors prove more creative and innovative than ours would have been. As Hannah walked out of the chamber, the aliens continued their laughing and dismissive sounds. They thought humans were just being emotional and childish. After all, humans were barely 300 years old as a space-traveling species, while some of these aliens had been exploring the galaxy for millions of years. But something in Hannah's calm confidence made a few of the smarter aliens feel slightly worried. The Zephyrian Confederacy delegates, who had always been friendly with humans, looked concerned. They knew humans better than most other species, and they knew that humans rarely made empty threats. The massive chamber slowly began to empty as delegates returned to their ships and homes across the galaxy. Most of them forgot about the human withdrawal within hours, dismissing it as an unimportant tantrum from an unimportant species. They had no idea that they had just witnessed the beginning of the end of their ancient galactic order. In the months and years to come, they would learn exactly what they had lost when they chose to treat humanity as children rather than equals. The galaxy was about to change in ways none of them could imagine. 6 months had passed since the humans walked out of the Galactic Council meeting. Administrator Lee Jun sat at his desk on Commerce Station Gamma 7, looking at computer screens full of shipping records that made his stomach hurt with worry. For 30 years, human cargo ships had arrived exactly on time, every single day. Now those ships had completely disappeared. His assistant rushed into the office. The Deltarian aliens' gills were opening and closing rapidly, which meant he was very nervous and scared. "Sir, we have another major problem," the assistant said, his voice shaking. "The Kepler-Vega shipping route is now 17 days late. The human shipping companies have cancelled all their contracts with us." Lee Jun put his hands on his head and rubbed his temples. He was getting terrible headaches every day now. When the humans first left the council, all the alien leaders had been happy. They said good riddance to those troublesome young humans who always complained and asked for things. But now, 6 months later, the truth was becoming clear. The humans had not just been helpful, they had become absolutely necessary for everything to work properly. The shipping routes that connected hundreds of worlds across the galaxy were breaking down. Food shipments were arriving weeks late. Important medicines were stuck in warehouses because there were no ships to carry them. Factory parts that kept alien cities running were sitting in spaceports with no way to reach their destinations. All across the galaxy, similar disasters were happening. On Nexus Station, the most important space station in Council territory, Chief Engineer Park Minho had been fired and replaced with a Vorthak crystal alien. The Vorthak was very proud and confident, saying that all the changes humans had made to the station's power systems were crude and simple, but acceptable for now. 3 weeks after the Vorthak engineer took over, something terrible happened. The entire power system crashed, leaving one whole section of the massive station in complete darkness. Thousands of aliens were trapped in elevators, hospitals lost power, and spaceships could not dock safely. Station Commander Yulden, who had 6 eyes and looked like a giant spider, stared angrily at the Vorthak engineer. "What went wrong?" he demanded. The crystal alien made musical sounds that the translation computers turned into words. "The problem is that human modifications use non-standard approaches that lack proper scientific foundation. They just made things work without understanding the theory behind them. Can you fix it?" Commander Yulden asked, his multiple eyes showing his growing anger. "Given enough time to figure out their creative solutions, maybe I can repair it," the Vorthak engineer replied, not sounding very confident. Meanwhile, in the far edges of galaxy, strange reports were coming back to the council. Human colonies were making direct trade deals with alien species that had never joined the Galactic Council. The mysterious Whisper folk, who had hidden from galactic politics for thousands of years, were suddenly meeting with human diplomats. Even more worrying, several alien species that had been under council protection were secretly asking about humanity's new independent trade systems. The situation got much worse when the Zephyrian Confederacy, who had always been humanity's best friends in the galaxy, refused to criticize the human withdrawal. The council leaders had demanded that the Zephyrians publicly say that humans were wrong and dangerous. Ambassador Kaylin of the Zephyrians stood up in an emergency council meeting and spoke in a way that shocked everyone. Usually, she was quiet and polite, but now her voice was strong and determined. "Our friendship with humanity has been built on treating each other as equals and sharing our knowledge freely. We will not abandon such partnerships just because the council finds them inconvenient." Elder Councillor Vexton, the ancient tentacled alien who was one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, became furious. His tentacles writhed and twisted like angry snakes. "The council does not make requests, Ambassador," he said in a threatening voice. "We give orders for the good of galactic stability and peace." Kaylin looked directly at him without showing any fear. "Then perhaps the galaxy needs a new definition of what stability and peace really mean." As more and more reports reached the council chambers, a horrible realization began to sink into the minds of the elder species. For decades, they had thought of humans as junior partners, useful but not essential, clever but not crucial. Now they were discovering that human integration into galactic society had been much deeper and more important than anyone had imagined. Humans had quietly become the backbone of interstellar trade. Their engineers had solved problems that alien experts could not figure out. Their explorers had made contact with species that the Council had never even known existed. Their innovative thinking had kept ancient systems working long past their expected lifetimes. The elder aliens were not just losing a junior member of their organization. They were watching their carefully built galactic empire begin to fall apart piece by piece. Supply chains were breaking, power systems were failing, and their client species were starting to ask dangerous questions about whether the Council's protection was really worth the restrictions that came with it. In the empty spaces where human ships used to travel, in the dark sections of space stations where human engineers used to work, and in the growing silence where human voices used to offer solutions, the galaxy was learning a painful lesson about the difference between wisdom and arrogance. Captain Song Hyun stood on the bridge of her spy ship called the Oversight as it came out of hyperspace at the edge of what used to be human territory. She worked for the Kethmoran, one of the oldest and most powerful alien species in the galaxy. Her mission was simple: find out what the humans were doing after they left the Galactic Council, then report back to the alien leaders. But what her ship's sensors showed her made no sense at all. "Captain," said her tactical officer, his voice full of shock and confusion, "I am detecting 17 major factory installations in this star system alone. But according to our intelligence files, this place was just a small farming colony 2 years ago." Captain Song stared at the computer displays with growing fear and amazement. Huge spaceship construction yards floated in perfect circles around 3 different planets. The building schedules suggested that humans were constructing ships at a speed that should have been impossible for such a young species. Even more disturbing were the ship designs coming out of those construction yards. These were sleek, beautiful vessels that combined the practical human style with completely unknown alien technologies. "Captain, are those defensive platforms?" asked her science officer, Park Jin-woo, pointing to a group of structures near the edge of the star system. The tactical officer studied his instruments carefully for several minutes. "No sir, those are not just defensive platforms. Those are complete battle stations. Each one appears to be larger than our biggest Council dreadnought warships." The spy ship Oversight continued its secret investigation mission, jumping from star system to star system. Intelligence reports had always described these places as unimportant human settlements in the middle of nowhere. But each system revealed the same shocking expansion. These were not just colonies anymore. They were thriving industrial centers connected by shipping lanes that completely avoided traditional Council space. The most shocking discovery came at the former human colony called New Terra. This world now had what looked like a diplomatic complex that could compete with Nexus Station itself, the Council's most important meeting place. Ships from dozens of different alien species moved through organized traffic patterns around the planet with smooth efficiency. Many of these alien species were completely unknown to Council databases. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission," Communications Officer Kim Do-yoon reported, his voice tight with worry. "It is addressed to us specifically by name." The main viewing screen turned on, showing a face that Captain Song recognized immediately. It was former Ambassador Hannah, the human woman who had announced humanity's withdrawal from the Council 6 months ago. But now she wore military uniform badges instead of diplomatic clothing. "Greetings, Captain Song," Hannah said with a small smile. "I trust your reconnaissance mission has been educational so far." Captain Song felt her blood turn cold with fear. They had been detected even though their ship was using full stealth technology that should have made them invisible. "You are wondering how we knew you were there," Hannah continued, still smiling. 2 years ago, we might have completely missed your approach. However, our new partners have taught us much about sensor technologies that Council species apparently never bothered to develop. The Whisper folk, for instance, have fascinating knowledge about quantum state detection systems." The transmission continued, revealing information that made Captain Song's tactical officer curse in 3 different alien languages. Humanity had not just survived their withdrawal from the Council. They had grown stronger and more powerful. Much more than that, they had built a completely alternative power structure that was actively recruiting Council client species. They were offering these species genuine partnership instead of the protection-based control that the Council provided. "Please give a message to the Council," Hannah said as her transmission neared its end. "Tell them that their former junior partners have learned to build bridges in places where the elders built walls. The galaxy, Captain Song, is far larger than the Council ever allowed their members to discover." As the spy ship Oversight prepared to leave human space and return to Council territory, its sensors detected one final detail that would shake the very foundations of Council intelligence services. Human exploration fleets were heading toward galactic regions that even the ancient Kethmoran species considered uncharted and unexplored. Humanity was not just building an alternative to the Council. They were expanding into territories that the elder species had never dared to explore. Captain Song sat in her command chair, staring at the data her ship had collected. The humans had been members of the Galactic Council for only 30 years. In that time, the elder species had treated them like children who needed guidance and protection. They had dismissed human innovations as crude and simple. They had laughed at human warnings and ignored human suggestions. Now, in just 6 months since their withdrawal, the humans had revealed capabilities that made the ancient council look weak and outdated. They had formed alliances with species the council had never even contacted. They had developed technologies that made council sensors look primitive. They had built an industrial base that rivaled anything in council space. Most frightening of all, they were exploring parts of the galaxy that the elder species had marked as too dangerous or impossible to reach. The humans were not just surviving on their own. They were thriving and growing in ways that threatened the very existence of the galactic order that had lasted for millions of years. As the Oversight jumped back into hyperspace to return home, Captain Song knew that her report would change everything. The Council had made a terrible mistake when they underestimated humanity. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council had been going on for 3 days and 3 nights without stopping. Elder Councillor Vexton, the powerful tentacled alien who had ruled parts of the galaxy for thousands of years, was so stressed that his tentacles had turned deep purple. Report after report kept coming in, and each one brought worse news than the last. 6 more alien species had officially left the Council to join humanity's new organization called the Cooperative Commonwealth. At the same time, important systems across Council space were breaking down one after another. Power stations were failing, food shipments were not arriving, and space stations were having serious problems. This situation cannot continue, declared Zethmyra, the crystalline alien whose body made beautiful musical sounds when she spoke. But now those sounds were urgent and frightened. These upstart humans are systematically destroying thousands of years of careful galactic order and peace. Admiral Yoon Taehyung stepped forward to address the assembled alien leaders. He was the head of the Council Defense Forces, the most powerful military organization in the galaxy. His uniform was covered with medals and badges from dozens of successful military campaigns against space pirates and rebellious colonies. But today, his report was very grim and scary. Human defensive capabilities are far beyond anything we previously estimated, the Admiral said, his voice serious and worried. They have built a network of military fortifications using technologies that we do not fully understand. These defenses are staffed by coalition forces from at least 30 different alien species. Intelligence Director Choi Soo-hyun, who was in charge of gathering secret information about threats to the Council, added even more disturbing news. 30 species that we have never encountered before, she said. It appears that humanity has been conducting extensive exploration and first contact missions in sectors of the galaxy that we classified as uninhabitable or strategically worthless. These new alien partners provide capabilities that perfectly complement human weaknesses. The debate that followed revealed just how deep the Council's crisis had become. Food shipments to the most important Council worlds were failing because they no longer had access to human agricultural efficiency and farming techniques. Industrial production across Council space had dropped by 30% because human innovation and problem-solving skills were no longer available. Most critically and dangerously, several member species were openly questioning whether the Council's protection was really worth all the restrictions and limitations that came with it. For hours, the alien leaders argued back and forth about what to do. Some wanted to try negotiating with the humans again. Others suggested economic sanctions to force humanity to return. A few even proposed completely ignoring the humans and pretending they did not exist. But Elder Councillor Morthek, whose ancient species had dominated galactic politics for over 5,000 years, finally spoke the words that had been hanging unspoken in the chamber like a dark cloud. His voice was old and tired, but his words were clear and frightening. We must consider direct military action against the humans. The proposal created an explosion of fierce debate throughout the chamber. Many of the alien delegates were shocked at the suggestion of using military force. For thousands of years, the Council had maintained peace through diplomacy, economic pressure, and the threat of withdrawal of protection. Direct military attacks against member species, even former member species, was almost unthinkable. But desperation and fear were now stronger than tradition and diplomatic protocol. Reports kept coming in of more infrastructure failures, more species defecting to join humanity, and more evidence that the humans were building something that could replace the Council entirely. The vote was close, but desperation won in the end. The Galactic Council officially authorized what they called Operation Guiding Hand. It was described as a precision intervention designed to neutralize human leadership and force their surrender through overwhelming technological superiority. Admiral Yoon was put in charge of the operation. His plan was elegant in its simplicity and terrifying in its scope. The Council would assemble the largest military fleet in galactic history, including ancient dreadnought warships that had never known defeat. They would launch simultaneous attacks against New Terra and 6 other key human worlds. The attacks would be swift and decisive, designed to capture human leaders and force an immediate surrender. The Admiral was confident that human military capabilities, no matter how much they had improved, could not stand against the combined might of species that had been perfecting warfare for millions of years. The humans were still a young species, barely 300 years old as space travelers. How could they possibly resist the military power of civilizations that were ancient when Earth was still forming? As the council session finally ended and the alien delegates returned to their ships to begin military preparations, a sense of grim determination settled over the chamber. They had tried diplomacy, economic pressure, and political isolation. Nothing had worked to bring the rebellious humans back under council control. Now they would try force. Operation Guiding Hand would teach humanity and any other species thinking of leaving the council that there were consequences for defying the established galactic order. The elder species had maintained their power for millions of years through a combination of wisdom, technology, and when necessary, overwhelming military superiority. Soon, they believed, the humans would learn the same lesson that countless other rebellious species had learned throughout galactic history. In the end, the council always won, and order was always restored. The natural hierarchy of the galaxy would be maintained, with the elder species in their rightful place as rulers and the younger species in their proper place as obedient subjects. They had no idea how wrong they were about to be. 5 years had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Council. Prime Coordinator Kim Hanna stood in the same meeting hall on Nexus Station where she had once announced humanity's withdrawal. The beautiful crystal and metal walls looked exactly the same, but everything else had changed completely. Where once 847 alien species had gathered under the control of elder species, now over 2,000 different civilizations participated in meetings of the new cooperative Commonwealth. The old system where ancient bloodlines and old technologies determined who had power was gone. Instead, a new system based on merit existed, where contribution and innovation determined how much influence each species had. Today's meeting agenda includes 17 first contact proposals, reported Secretary Park Ye-jin, looking at her electronic tablet. The schedule displayed meetings that would have been impossible under the old council system. Our exploration fleets have discovered 3 completely new galactic arms in just the past month. Hannah nodded as she watched representatives from species that the old council had never even imagined take their seats in the assembly hall. There were the mysterious Whisper folk, whose quantum state manipulation abilities had completely revolutionized stealth technology for everyone. The Builders were there too, an amazing species whose living architecture actually grew stronger when put under stress. The Harmony Collective had also joined, a species with distributed consciousness that could solve complex problems through parallel processing that made traditional computers look primitive and crude. In the center of the chamber, where the elder species' high seats had once looked down on lesser members like judges looking down on criminals, now stood a simple speaking platform available to any species with a proposal or concern. The old elevated seats had been converted into a beautiful memorial garden, serving as a reminder of how stagnation and resistance to change could disguise itself as wisdom. Ambassador Choi Sun-hee walked up to Hannah with the day's most important report. Coordinator, the Vorthak delegation has formally requested Commonwealth membership. They are offering to share their advanced crystalline matrix technologies in exchange for access to our exploration networks and trade routes. It was a moment that Hannah had thought might happen someday, but had never quite believed would actually arrive. The proud crystalline beings who had once dismissed humanity as crude children were now seeking partnership as equals. Similar requests had been arriving from other former council species as their isolation became increasingly difficult to maintain. The old Galactic Council had completely collapsed 2 years after Operation Guiding Hand failed so catastrophically. The massive council fleet, which was supposed to force humanity into surrender, had been destroyed or captured by human forces and their new allies in less than 6 hours of fighting. Admiral Yoon himself was now living in comfortable exile on a human world, having chosen to defect rather than face a council military tribunal. The failure of the military operation had triggered a cascade of defections from the council. Species after species had withdrawn to join the Commonwealth, attracted by promises of genuine equality, shared exploration, and technological cooperation. The elder species who remained found themselves increasingly isolated, ruling over empty territories while the galaxy moved on without them. What are the Vorthak terms? Hannah asked, though she already knew the answer would follow Commonwealth standard protocols. Full equality in all Commonwealth decisions, open technological exchange with all member species, and commitment to our exploration mandates, Choi Sun-hee replied. No special considerations for their previous status as an elder species. They accept the same terms as every other member. Through the chamber's vast windows, Hannah could see the construction yards where Commonwealth ships were being built using technologies from hundreds of different species. Each vessel was unique, designed not according to rigid specifications but crafted to reflect the creativity and specialization of their creators. Human efficiency combined with Whisper folk stealth technology, builder living materials, and innovations from dozens of other species. Approved, Hannah said simply. Schedule their integration ceremony for next week. Make sure to invite representatives from all the other former council species who have submitted membership applications. As the day's session began, Hannah thought about the incredible journey that had brought them to this point. Humanity's withdrawal from the council had not been an act of anger or spite, but a recognition that true progress required freedom to grow and explore. The Commonwealth represented everything the old council had claimed to be but had never actually achieved: genuine cooperation between equals, shared exploration of the unknown, and a future built on adaptation and innovation rather than control and stagnation. In the distance, through one of the station's observation ports, she could see the lights of human ships preparing to depart for the galactic edge. Even now, exploration fleets were pushing into regions that no species had ever imagined visiting, making contact with civilizations the old council would have dismissed as impossible or irrelevant. The elder species had built a galaxy frozen in careful stability, where change was discouraged and innovation was controlled. Humanity and their Commonwealth partners were building something far more ambitious, a galaxy without artificial limits, where any species with curiosity and courage could help write the next chapter of galactic civilization. As species after species presented their innovations and discoveries during the session, Hannah smiled. The humans had indeed learned to build bridges where the elders had built walls. And beyond those bridges lay a universe of infinite possibility, waiting to be explored by anyone brave enough to reach for it.